On September 3, 2011, police in Luoyang, Henan Province, China, received a call from a frightened girl. She said she had been kidnapped and held for 2 months in a dungeon under an apartment building. There were 3 living girls inside and 2 other dead girls buried below. The girl escaped when the man took her out to force her into prostitution, which is how she was able to call for help. Welcome to Red Eastern True Crime. If you like true crime stories, please subscribe to my channel. Let's dive into this story. The police were shocked by the girl's report and wasted no time. They quickly found her and followed her directions to an old apartment building. In this building, each unit had a small basement with only a tiny window at ground level. They entered Unit 2 with the girl and discovered a cramped 20-square-meter basement room. The room smelled of mold and was cluttered with a bed, cooking tools, 2 single sofas, and a table with a computer. There was a camera on the computer to make it look like a normal room. After the girl pointed to a corner of the room, the police moved things aside and uncovered a sliding window door on the floor. Beneath it was a hole with 2 pipes extending into it. The inside of the hole was pitch black and appeared to be very deep, with an opening about 50 centimeters wide, allowing only one person to pass through. The police carefully descended into the hole using a ladder and the ladder's handrail. The hole was vertical and 4 meters deep. At the bottom, they found a horizontal tunnel that forced them to crawl forward on their stomachs. Soon, the police reached a small iron door. After much effort, they managed to open it, revealing darkness ahead. As they crawled forward a few dozen centimeters, they encountered a second iron door, followed by a third, fourth, and fifth iron door, each embedded in the walls with thick iron chains and locks on the outside. Eventually, the police came to a total of 5 iron doors in this 4.7-meter-long tunnel. In front of them was another gate. As the police struggled to open this last gate, a soft and expectant voice of a woman from inside said, "Big brother, you finally came." Soon they heard the voices of several women speaking. When the door opened, the 3 girls saw a police officer in uniform and froze in disbelief before breaking down in tears seconds later. All 4 girls were rescued. The dungeon where the girls were held stunned the police. It was about 4 square meters, dark, damp, and filled with stale air. The only source of air came from 2 7-meter-long, white and 1 green pipe. The dungeon was 2.43 meters high, with a wooden board dividing it into 2 levels at 1.1 meters above the floor. The upper level served as a sleeping area for the girls, while the lower level contained necessities such as a gas cylinder, pots, plates, noodles, and spices. The dungeon had electricity and provided the girls with a laptop, DVD player, and a few books to pass the time, such as Sunshine Mindset, Ask No Heaven, Carefree Princess, and Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. However, there was no internet access. Police also found various documents in the dungeon, including broadband installation forms, bank transaction receipts, mobile phone payment slips, medical examination records, an abortion request form, as well as condoms, a shovel, and handcuffs. Acting on a tip from the girl who reported the case, the police began digging in the corners of the dungeon. They quickly uncovered the badly decomposed body of the first victim, who still had handcuffs on her wrists because she wasn't buried deep. Further digging revealed the body of a second girl buried deeper in the dungeon. The police officers who participated in the investigation of the dungeon were shocked and frightened to find such an evil and horrible dungeon under a residential building where people lived. Of the 6 girls imprisoned in the dungeon, the youngest was 16 and the oldest was 24. 2 of them were killed, and the other 4 were taken to the police station. Police learned from neighbors that a man in his 30s named Lee Hall was responsible for managing the basement that led to the dungeon. The ownership of the basement was registered in the name of a young woman who turned out to be Lee Hall's wife. After the victimized girls identified Lee Hall from a photo, the police officially identified him as the prime suspect and began the process of arresting him. Within less than 24 hours, Luoyang police arrested Lee Hall as he tried to escape. Lee Hall, born in 1977 and 34 years old at the time of the incident, had a vocational school education and worked as a firefighter for many years after graduating. After his discharge, he was assigned to the enforcement team of the Luoyang Technical Supervision Bureau, a city regulatory department, where he worked in a basic role. His monthly salary was 2,000 RMB, about $310. Lee Hall was married to a woman 10 years his junior, and they had a 1-year-old son. His wife was a housewife. Despite his ordinary appearance and stable family and job, Lee Hall had a hidden dark side as the evil emperor of the dungeon palace he had built. Knowing that his secrets were out and his fate was sealed, Lee Hall confessed all his crimes to the police. In 2008, Lee Hall bought the basement without his wife's knowledge and registered it in her name without a clear plan at the time. The following year, while browsing adult websites, he saw advertisements for video chats with girls performing adult acts. Intrigued, he tried video chatting with a girl for the first time, charging 100 RMB per hour, about $14. Impressed by the money-making potential, Lee Hall wanted to have girls video chatting with customers to make money for him. However, he knew he couldn't completely control the girls, so he decided to dig a dungeon and trap some karaoke club girls there. Lee Hall, an experienced former firefighter, was trained in demolition, explosives, and excavation. Once he had the idea, he wasted no time in putting it into action. Beginning in August 2009, Lee Hall worked during the day and dug in the basement at night. He disposed of the dirt by wrapping it up and hauling it away on his scooter. With no security in the old neighborhood, he went unnoticed while moving the dirt, and the neighbors didn't notice anything strange. To cover his actions, Lee Hall told his wife that he had taken a part-time job as a night gatekeeper to make extra money. He claimed he had to work 15 nights a month, and his wife never suspected a thing. After 2 months of digging, Lee Hall finished the vertical tunnel to the dungeon and began the horizontal one. The space was big enough to hold one person. For better understanding, let's call the girls who entered the dungeon in order: Amy, Betty, Chloe, Dora, Emma, and Fiona. In October 2009, Lee Hall met Amy at a karaoke club and convinced her to come to his place for a sex trade by luring her to the basement. Once Amy entered the basement, Lee Hall closed the door and revealed his vicious intentions. He assaulted Amy, then forced her into the tunnel and made her dig for him. Amy tried to resist, but Lee Hall beat and threatened her to comply with his demands. During the day, when Lee Hall was away, Amy was trapped in the tunnel with no one to hear her cries for help. Amy became Lee Hall's first prisoner, and soon they finished digging the horizontal tunnel to begin building his dungeon. After a few months, the dungeon was completed, and Lee Hall wired it for electricity and installed an air duct. He began targeting girls in karaoke clubs and erotic massage parlors. In 2010, Lee Hall lured Betty to the basement, assaulted her, and forced her into the dungeon with Amy. While Lee Hall was often away, the two trapped girls thought about how to escape. However, the dungeon had 6 locked doors in the horizontal tunnel and was 4 meters deep in the vertical tunnel. Despite their loud cries for help, no one heard them. One day, Lee Hao returned to the dungeon and girls. When Lee Hao's back was turned, Amy hit him in the head with her high heels, but it didn't do much damage. Lee Hall quickly overpowered Amy and brutally beat her, leaving her barely conscious. Betty, terrified, stood there in silence. At that moment, Lee Hall forced Betty to strangle Amy to save herself. Following his orders, Betty complied. Lee Hall then dug a hole in the corner of the dungeon and buried Amy's body. From then on, Betty lived in constant fear of Lee Hall. For the next year and a half, until June 2011, Lee Hall tricked Chloe, Dora, Emma, and Fiona into the basement and imprisoned them in the dungeon. Betty told each girl Amy's story, instilling fear and compliance. At first, the girls couldn't cook in the dungeon, and had to wait for Lee Hall to bring food every 2 days, deliberately starving the girls to weaken them and prevent escape attempts. Eventually, to avoid the hassle, he equipped the dungeon with a gas cylinder and cooking supplies and provided rice and noodles for the girls to cook for themselves. Each time he left the dungeon, he took their waste and garbage with him. To help the girls feel more at peace in the dungeon, Lee Hall provided them with basic necessities, as well as books, a laptop, and a DVD player to pass the time. During the long torment and captivity, a small society formed among the girls in the dungeon. Initially fearful, resentful, and disgusted by Lee Hall, they gradually became compliant and flattering, even developing a twisted admiration and affection for him. They called Lee Hall Hubby or Big Brother, greeted him eagerly at the dungeon entrance, and served him like an emperor. In their efforts to win Lee Hall's favor, the girls became jealous and competitive, often fighting over who had more opportunities to sleep with him, and thus increased their status within the dungeon. Lee Hall's small gestures, such as bringing a snack, were met with immense gratitude and boasting. One day, the girls in the dungeon fought over who would sleep with Lee Hall. The argument escalated and led to a physical fight between Chloe and Dora. When Lee Hall heard about the fight and discovered that Chloe had started it, he used it as an excuse to punish her for disturbing the harmony of the dungeon. In front of the other girls, Lee Hall brutally beat Chloe. He then ordered all the girls to join him in punishing the already weak Chloe, who tragically lost her life in the group attack. Lee Hall's actions were driven by his fear that the growing number of girls in the dungeon might start a collective rebellion. By making each girl participate in the beating, he aimed to make them all complicit and bound to him out of fear. Witnessing and participating in Chloe's death deepened the girls' loyalty and subservience to Lee Hall. As for Chloe, Lee Hall was already dissatisfied with her due to a gynecological disorder that prevented her from satisfying his twisted desires and earning money for him. Her tragic fate served as a warning to the others. In an effort to prevent further incidents, the remaining girls collectively established rules and took turns spending time with Lee Hall according to a rotation. Feeling that he had control over the girls, Lee Hall began to implement his original plan, to have the girls participate in online nude chats to make money. He set up a computer and a camera in the basement, installed internet access, and each night asked one girl to come out of the dungeon and sit in front of the computer for a video performance while Lee Hall supervised. If the girl showed any distress signals, Lee Hall would immediately shut down the computer. The price for the girls' video chats was 100 RMB per hour, or $14. Lee Hall received payment through Alipay. However, the income was much lower than he expected, due to frequent crackdowns on online adult platforms. This forced Lee Hall to constantly find new platforms, which made it difficult to find viewers. Maintaining the girls came at a cost. When one of the girls became pregnant, Lee Hall had to cover the cost and take her to the hospital for an abortion. Over time, Lee Hall struggled to make a profit and often had to use his own salary to cover expenses. He told his wife that his frequent nights out were due to the part-time job, but he couldn't give her more money, which made it difficult for him to explain the situation. At this point, Lee Hall thought the girls were completely under his control and decided to take a risky step by taking them out to meet clients in person for prostitution, which paid more than online chats. Beginning in August 2011, Lee Hall took the girls out several times, with only one girl going with him each time. Although the girls had opportunities to escape or seek help, their fear of Lee Hall prevented them from taking action, causing them to miss opportunities. It wasn't until Fiona, the last girl lured into the dungeon, was taken out by Lee Hall. Fiona had been in the dungeon for just over 2 months and hadn't witnessed the deaths of Amy and Chloe. Despite being controlled and brainwashed by Lee Hall and seeing the obedience and loyalty of the other girls, Fiona sought a way to escape. On September 3rd, with the help of a client, she finally found her chance, escaped and called the police. Lee Hall soon learned that Fiona had fled. Knowing the gravity of his crimes and his impending exposure, he ran to his sister Lee Yuan, confessed everything, borrowed 1,000 RMB, about $155, and hoped to flee to another province. The next day, however, he was arrested by the police. The four rescued girls, ranging in age from 16 to 24, and from different parts of Henan Province, endured captivity in the dungeon for anywhere from 2 months to nearly 2 years. They lived with two girls who had died and were repeatedly abused and forced into prostitution. Surprisingly, when questioned, the girls spoke positively of Li Hall, saying he treated them well and cared for them. They even went so far as to say that in the absence of the police, they had forgotten their animosity toward Li Hall. Some even tried to justify his actions, showing signs of Stockholm Syndrome. The girls were kept in a sealed environment, 6 meters underground with 6 locked doors. They witnessed and were forced to participate in the deaths of other girls who shared their captivity, some of whom were buried beneath their feet. With no way to escape and no hope of ever finding freedom, they adapted to survive in this harsh environment. Their mental state gradually warped, causing them to alter themselves for self-preservation, obeying Li Hall's every command and even aiding in his cruelty. As Li Hall's actions escalated, he turned the dungeon into a twisted palace of sexual exploitation. He killed anyone who challenged him and used fear to keep the girls in line. With complete control over resources, he manipulated the girls by offering rewards. Adept at mind games, he would take each girl alone in the basement and deliberately create rifts between them to foster distrust and encourage them to report on each other. By fostering rivalry and jealousy, the girls stopped working together on escape plans. In this environment of absolute power and manipulation, Li Hall lost all sense of humanity and became arrogant. He would take the girls out to meet clients, believing that he had complete psychological control over them. Had his motives not been driven by profit, and had he simply imprisoned them for his own pleasure, the fate of the girls would have been unimaginable. After a year-long investigation and trial, Li Hall was sentenced to death on November 30th, 2012, for murder, organizing prostitution, illegal confinement, and profiting from obscene material. Betty received a 3-year sentence, while Dora and Emma received suspended sentences. Li Yuan, Li Hao's sister, received a suspended sentence for harboring Li Hall. On January 21st, 2014, Li Hall was executed. In this case, we see how Li Hall and the 6 girls behaved in an extreme environment. Li Hall's unbridled power allowed him to harm others, threatening the girls to become his accomplices in murder. In a desperate attempt to survive, the girls participated in these crimes. Li Hall manipulated them through fear and evil tactics to control them, and when he thought his power was absolute, he began to make mistakes. Women who work in karaoke clubs and adult entertainment venues are already vulnerable members of society. They are easy to exploit, easy to attack, and easy to harm in any country. It's a very sad reality. What do you think about this case? Please share your thoughts and opinions in the comments section. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more crime stories, please like and subscribe to my channel.